Welcome back, everyone, to the Calling Dallas-Fort Worth. We're going to jump into round 2 action in about 5 minutes. But before we do, I am joined by Kel. What are you doing today, Kel?
I am doing great. It is absolutely great to be back in the coverage booth and to see some excellent Flesh and Blood Limited gameplay. I adore Limited. It's one of my favorite ways to play the game, and it is so sweet to finally see like it at a big event, especially with Tales of Aria, such an awesome set.
I agree. I think it is my favorite format way to play the game casually.
Oh, for
I
sure.
think sitting back, cracking packs, especially of Tales of Aria, cracking packs and drafting or just building a deck and playing and seeing what you get, it is like the perfect way to experience the game kitchen table. It's just absolutely fantastic. And I know you were watching round 1 along with us, right?
Oh, for sure.
What did you think about those 2 games in round 1?
I think the games were very interesting. I think Matt's deck in particular was a little crazy. He closed it out very fast. That turn 1 Flicker Wisp was pretty strong. Let's put it that way. Pretty strong.
Yeah, anytime you draw into a Flicker Wisp turn 1 and just play it out there for 2 with the ability to fuse it and then follow that up with more threatening arcane damage, that's a really good turn 1 play for you playing on the turn 2. So drawing into that and then playing that is a good way to open your round 1.
Definitely a lot of arcane damage coming out from Briar so far, and I think that's something we're going to see this whole weekend. We're going to see like a ton of arcane damage coming out from Briar, and it's going to be one of the defining flavors, I think, of this weekend.
Yeah, we talked about it in the open, and we talked a lot about the idea of like maybe there's going to be a lot of players that actually just choose to play Briar straight up, both in sealed and also in draft, because they have that ability to deal arcane damage, which can be very difficult to deal with. You know, whereas Dominate, any card can block. Basically, any card can block some damage there, whereas, you know, Arcane, not so much, right?
Yeah, it's just almost free damage, right? When you're looking at your deck, when you're building your deck for Limited, you can see all these cards with arcane damage, and you're like, well, if I draw these cards, my opponent's life is basically reduced by that amount. There's very few ways that can actually deal with it in this format. So it's just quite strong. It's quite strong. Like you said, Dominate, you can still kind of deal with Dominate. We do have some defense reactions in the set, so, you know, they can set it up, you know, arsenal a defense reaction and prepare for that, but it's very hard to prepare for that arcane damage.
It's very hard to deal with it at any, you know, form and fashion, and that does push people into playing Briar. I think that's going to matter a lot more when we get down to draft, because it's going to be very interesting to see who chooses to just hard draft Briar because of that ability, or who chooses to, you know, stay very open. I don't know how your draft experiences have gone. I generally lean to try and stay open early in draft, but, you know, if you see a couple of those arcane cards, it may point you that direction, right?
I mean, draft is going to be very interesting in general, because if a lot of people are just wanting to force Briar, it means that Oldhim and Lexi are going to be way more open, and then their decks might just be that much more solid and more consistent. So it's going to be very, very interesting going into the draft, I think.
Yeah, I think that's going to really show players who has thought about this, who's you know, practiced draft perhaps, and the people that understand you know, where signals are coming from across the table, who might be taking what, and when to pivot into perhaps a different hero. I think those players will benefit very greatly as far as success in draft.
I think those are the players that we're going to see, you know, going into day 2.
Definitely, which is going to be a split after a long day 1. We're going to split and then jump into day 2 with more drafting. But I believe at this moment we are ready to jump into round 2, and it looks like we're going to see Rob Cygul starting round 2.
It looks like we're going to see a kind of a mirror of the last 2 games. We have a Lexi versus Briar. We can see these 2 heroes as kind of the starting favorites of sealed, at least.
I think so. I think there's a lot of people that really enjoy the play style of Ranger, and maybe perhaps really enjoy the ability to like just load things up at instant speed with Dominate, and then of course everybody really likes being able to throw Arcane. So
you're talking to one of the players who loves to play Ranger, so I'm looking forward to seeing what Lexi can do this weekend.
Looks like starting with a red Chilling Ice Vein from Arsenal, most likely with Dominate, coming across for 5. If not with Dominate, then for 6.
It looks like we're going to be blocking for 3 at least. If it don't think it was fused though, so it doesn't have that on-hit effect.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't appear that that's that necessary. He is going to take 2 damage here. And
you know, all of this damage is going to be super relevant in limited, especially when you're going up against Briar. But the fact that Briar is not blocking too much is kind of scary.
Oh my goodness! Do you notice? Do you see it? Do you see? Kyle has the legendary New Horizon, which means after he reveals the face down card in Arsenal with Lexi's ability, he can actually load a second Arsenal slot.
That is awesome.
How exciting is that going to be?
Legendary already in round 2.
That is crazy cool.
I'm very curious to see how much this match is going to revolve around having that legendary and having that extra Arsenal slot.
I will be honest, I don't think it's going to be the absolute game winner, because look at this, we see a double Weave Earth, and this is going to absolutely strip cards from hand with the Vela Flash coming in. You don't even care to fuse Vela Flash. This is pushing 5 plus 3 plus 2. So this is coming across for 10 with Go Again.
10's pretty good. 10 Go Again, pretty good. I do believe Rob has...
He does have a resource.
He does have a resource floating.
So this will represent the possibility of doing Rosetta Thorn for 2 and 2, because he has played 2 non-attack action cards to give this Go Again, and a non-attack and an attack to give the Rosetta Thorn, basically to turn it online.
Yeah, this is quite the turn from Rob. Like, threatening that extra 4 damage, 2 minimum from Arcane is definitely where you want to be early on. And this is just the power of a well-tuned Briar deck.
Overall, this is a 15 damage turn.
Yeah, I mean, even in Constructed, 15 damage turn is nothing to sneeze at. And in Limited, this is scary. Like, very, very scary.
So we're looking at the 10 from Vela Flash, and then the possibility, if your opponent defends here, you can Mark of Lightning to deal them damage. And after that, you threaten 2 and 2 with Rosetta Thorn. He's just going to take it, which means the Mark of Lightning doesn't play. So he's just going to go half-life here, and then Rosetta Thorn for 2 and 2. He's going to take that as well?
Oh, 14.
Oh my goodness gracious.
He
did the 14. He came across, going down to 6. That must mean he has a plan. Right. Oh, and he does. He reveals the lightning card, giving Go Again to the next thing that he plays, the next attack.
He's got to follow it up with a really spicy turn to make it worth not blocking.
Well, let's see. So he has this. Oh, he's going to attack with a Winter's Bite, Go Again, coming across for 6. Yes. I believe it comes across for 6 on this one.
Yep, 6 Go Again.
6 Go Again, and then we see the Lightning Surge, which will have a natural Go Again, costs you nothing to play.
Yeah, it still has 2 cards in hand, so we're looking at the start of another really solid turn here.
Floating a resource, so he will be able to shiver an arrow into his second Arsenal slot from the New Horizon.
Yep.
Possibly giving Dominate, and then coming across for 4 maybe. This is looking like a 15 damage turn.
Yeah, another 15 damage turn. We have to note that Rob does have an Embodiment of Earth token, so that will pump up his non-attack cards on defense. So that could be really relevant on a high damage turn like this. And here we see, so that's going to come into play here, giving that non-attack +1.
Yeah, Invigorate's going to block 3 in this scenario. So he is going to use the Lightning Surge here to attack for 4. Lightning Surge coming across for 4 and Go Again from its own effect. It gains Go Again if played from Arsenal, which is this is one of those cards that I love taking early in drafts. I think Lightning Surge is super fantastic in draft because it represents 4 damage, great breakpoint.
Yeah.
The possibility of a natural Go Again after you've Arsenaled it, and you get it into the Arsenal the turn before after you've used it to fuse.
Yeah, it's just a lightning card too, so it's fantastic. I think it is one of the better picks for a lightning style deck.
Blocks with a yellow Arcanic Shockwave, which leaks 1 damage, pushing 1 damage here.
So Rob's blocking pretty heavily on this turn. Maybe he smells it as well.
He
smells
knows.
That it's
yeah,
gonna be a big turn.
There's the Chilling Ice Vein yellow, which does come in for 4. I would imagine 4 with Dominate. So this is actually he's able to avoid some of this damage.
Do you think it's Dominate, or do you think
no?
it's +1?
You're right. +1 is the better choice here because he only has a card in hand anyway, and so that's likely blocking for 3.
And I think this is a good play from Rob, by the way, just to block it out. He's already has this amazing commanding lead, getting his opponent down to 6 so early. So he's pretty happy just to kind of block it out when his opponent can have a good turn, and then
and he blocks with his own Lightning Surge for 2.
So he'll end up taking probably 3 here if I had to guess.
Yeah, I think he takes 3 if he chose the +1 effect, and it does appear that way. On his turn, he's just going to pass, draw up, and then move on with the game.
Just kind of hope that Kyle does not follow that up with another similar turn.
Well, there is no arsenal for Kyle, so he does
True,
not
very
have
true.
the he doesn't have the ability to like New Horizon tricks. Like can't do that very easily. Unless there are some ways, I will say that. And this is, I was wondering if he was going to do this. The Code of Frost here is the perfect tempo play. You want to keep tempo, and you want to threaten your opponent in damage and in taxing ability. So popping the Code of Frost to give Rob a Frostbite token is going to make his turn harder.
I think that's a great call. And then he follows that up with an Ice Quake.
Yes.
Ice Quake is a very interesting card, so it's going to basically power up his next attack, which is going to be another one of these
chilling Ice Vein again for 4, but this is coming across for 7 since the Ice Quake gave it the buff, and if it hits, creates a Frostbite from Ice Quake, and if it hits, it's going to tax even further with the Chilling Ice Vein fuse effect, and he fused with one of my favorite cards. I love that's a great arsenal card
and
too, Winter's Bite.
Yeah, the Ice Vein on hit effect is it's going to force your opponent to discard a card unless they pay 1 resource.
That's right.
So it's a pretty good on a hit effect. So if it hits, it's going to tax his hand even further.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That might actually incentivize Rob to block more than he otherwise would have.
And if this was given Dominate, he can only block with a card from hand, but he does look like he has a trick up his sleeve.
I see a cheeky little shelter there.
Yeah, Summerwood Shelter could allow him to get out of a sticky situation here if it's the red.
I can't tell quite what color that is.
If it's not the red, then he's probably stuck a little bit anyway.
Yeah, it's a pretty tough situation. And this is an excellent follow-up turn from Kyle, like able to keep the pressure on after having a big turn. And that's exactly what you want to do, right? You need to keep that tempo, and you need to keep Briar from playing these powerful arcane damage cards. So
and he is going to block 3 here, and at instant speed, he is going to jam. Oh, it's a blue Summerwood.
So it's only blocking for a +2 then?
It ups the block for +2, blocking 5. That's right.
It's still not bad, right? Still not bad.
Definitely still not bad, but it is going to. He is going to have to pay here at instant speed for the Frostbite effect because that does destroy the Frostbite, losing a Weave Lightning in the process to the bottom of his deck. It is going to create a Frostbite token because this does hit.
Oh yeah, this is rough. This is actually pretty rough for Rob here.
Actually, I think this is not that big of a deal because his turn after doing this block is just going to be Arsenal Pass anyway, and so it will destroy Frostbite token.
Yeah, I mean that is a good way to think about it.
And that's exactly what he did, as you can see here. He immediately arsenaled the card that was left in his hand, drew up, destroyed the Frostbite, didn't have to deal with it.
So it looks like
and it came right back.
Yep. He's going to use Lexi's hero ability, reveal that ice card from the arsenal, and Frostbite token again.
Yep, revealing with Lexi's ability here gives a Frostbite because it is an ice card revealed this way. He is going to play the Winter's Bite, so he's basically asking the question to Rob, do you want to discard a card or do you want to pitch a card? Either way, you got 3 cards.
Yeah, and that's once again a really good way to tempo out Rob. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly where you want to be. I love seeing the Ice Lexi here. I see a lot of Lightning Lexis, but I love to see the Ice Lexi, and I love to see the power of it. We're seeing a lot of Frostbite tokens coming out of Lexi, and I think it's really solid. I think it's definitely really solid.
It is an underratedly good strategy if you can generate enough Frostbite tokens consistently, maybe turn after turn, or pick a few turns and just create a few of them. It makes it to where you can do exactly this. You can grab the tempo and just keep it the whole time by making your opponent just constantly pay taxes.
Looks like Rob is actually going to pitch a Weave Lightning, so he will have a resource floating, if it matters at all this turn.
Looking at his hand, he's got Rites of Replenishment, which costs 2 to play on his turn. He's got a Stir the Wildwood, which also costs 2 to play on his turn. And most likely he's got a blue card, which would get him through that Frostbite token, pitching blue for either of those 2 attacks. So he's most likely trying to keep those cards in play. Perhaps he's just going to kind of give away some of those cards and play whatever he arsenaled earlier.
So here we have a good old Frazzle coming in for probably 5 Dominate, I would guess.
That's the guess as well. I would think it would be 5 Dominate, but you could also just be content with the 6 here, though I think you want the damage.
And here we have a fusion as well, so it's going to deal an extra point of damage if it hits.
Yep. Choosing here if you want to block.
It's very interesting.
If you want to take it, maybe.
Because Rob just kind of really wants to have a turn at this point.
Yeah.
Because he's had a couple turns where he really didn't do anything, and he needs to get the tempo back to close out the game.
This block makes a ton of sense. You can't really, if it's dominated, you can't really get out of that situation without taking damage. So you're going to take something. You might as well lose yellow rights of replenishment. It doesn't provide that much of attack, whereas Stir on your turn is going to do a lot more.
Now, do we know what card Rob has in his arsenal? I don't remember if we saw what he has. So that might actually come into play on this next turn.
It most definitely could. I didn't catch which card he chose to not block with last turn. He's going to double pitch. Okay.
Looks like it's going to be from Arsenal.
It's an Evergreen.
So this is a great long game card. It will go on the bottom of his deck.
Yes. And Evergreen does attack very strong. I believe it attacks for 7.
Yeah.
He does have to pitch both cards away on his turn because it costs 3. But the Frostbite was making it cost 4. So currently floating 2 resources, but no go again means he's not actually going to do anything after this attack for 7. But it is, of course, attacking for lethal and threatening 1 damage from the Mark of Lightning if opponents block with cards.
Yeah, so I mean, like, it's still a very threatening attack. Even though Rob was able to prevent some of that damage, he was able to follow that up with a decently sized 7 attack.
Yeah, depending. Oh, he's going to block with the hood, which, as we've seen, hasn't really come into play.
But still blocks for 2.
It blocks nicely. It hasn't come into play for the effect, but here being able to block like this and not immediately die is a really, really solid thing because it does allow him to go down to 1.
Going to 1, but keeping a hand.
Yeah, keeping the full hand. So this is basically saying I have to try and kill you because if you have any of the things that deal arcane, then I'm dead here, but perhaps you do that because you think you can get 9 damage and you start with a red ball. Lightning might get you there.
That's a good way to start. That's definitely a good way to start.
That might get you there because it does come across for 3 by itself, but if you don't block this with 3 block, which he does, flash plus the embodiment of Earth.
Blocking for 3. That's what you want to do. You definitely want to block it out.
Yep.
This is a very interesting turn for Rob, too, because depending on what he has in his hand, you can almost smell that victory, but you need to be very disciplined in this turn and then not be too greedy and put yourself into a place where you end up losing an otherwise unwinnable situation.
Well, in this instance, he's got a Bramble Spark and an Arcanic Shockwave. That's a 2-card combo to win the game now that your opponent's at 1. So basically, you just need to not die on this turn.
Yeah, you're on survival mode.
Block with the other card that blocks for 3. I believe it's a Weave Lightning. Or no, it's a Lightning Surge that blocks for 2.
Yep, Lightning Surge.
So basically, just don't die this turn is what he's thinking here, and you win the game next turn.
I've definitely been in this situation, too. I don't know about you, but, like, you can,
he's going to block
with the Bramble Spark.
Yeah.
And so he is being very disciplined here, maybe respecting his opponent's plays.
Well, the other play here is, you just keep 1 card, which is Arcanic Shockwave. If they block it, because they're at 1, they have to block it. You just Mark of Lightning for the win.
Yeah, he does have the Mark of Lightning, yeah.
So basically just don't even worry about any card except an attack. Play that down, and then Mark of Lightning for the victory.
Coming in for 5 with Frazzle. I would guess this one is probably also dominated. Or was this one from Arsenal without activating Shiver?
This was from Arsenal, but I believe this was a Shiver activation because he would have had to play this down and then play it from Arsenal. Maybe he just did flip this over, though. I don't know.
Let's see what Rob's going to block with. I do see, you're right. I do see that that one last card in hand.
Yeah, both of these are 0-cost attacks, the 2 that he could choose. So he chooses to block for 3 here instead of for the 1 that blocks for 2. Taking less damage.
Get a little bit of value here, yeah.
Well, just take less damage. Maybe you miscalculated something and he could just blow you up on this turn, so you block a little bit more here. But basically, after they draw an Arsenal, you slam down this attack, and then you win with the Mark of Lightning.
Oh, yeah. Cheeky Mark of Lightning.
Oh, that's such a cool way to close out a game because there's no possible way to stop this without, just using a card from your hand. There's no equipment that can do it, and Mark of Lightning just comes across for the 1 point of damage. That is a really, really crazy game. I'm not going to lie. The way that Kyle took that 14 damage turn and then immediately shifted tempo, I actually felt like he had the tempo advantage all the way through until the moment he chose to go to 1. And perhaps that was the moment where if he committed a few more cards or 1 card to block and save a few life, it prevented that last final play that allowed Rob to pick up that win.
I could tell you, being at maybe like 2-3 life against Briar is incredibly scary.
It is so
That's
scary.
like the kill zone because at that point you're like, the game's going to end soon, no matter what.
Yeah.
And so as the opposing player, you're like, I need to close this out now. Otherwise, it's just over.
It's either that or you're choosing to incentivize extra blocking through perhaps the early portions of the game so that you can prevent that scenario from occurring where you're at 2 or 3 and your opponent just needs a few arcane to win the game.
Yeah, so, exactly.
And we saw that kind of come to fruition in that game where if you didn't take that line, then you're opening yourself up to a lot of ways to just come vault over the top with damage.
Yeah, and I love spectacular Mark of Lightning finish.
That's a really good way to finish a game. So that is the first of several matches that we'll take a look here in round 2. Let's take a quick little break, set up the other one for you, and talk through another game in round 2 here at the Calling Fort Worth.